Welcome to another edition of Fox 10 Talk Sports. It's the fun stuff. Oh, yeah, we're getting casual. I got the tie loose. I got the glasses on. I just finished doing the 6 o'clock sportscast. Lots going on for the Arizona Cardinals. Lots going on in the NFL. That's why we're bringing in our Cardinals insider, Howard Balzer, with Cards Wire and USAtoday.com. I'm telling you, this guy, Howard Balzer's forgotten more football than we know. Howard, just tell us, how long have you been covering the National Football League?
Well, Richard, thanks for having me on. Always enjoy it. And yes, this is a milestone year for me. This is my 50th season covering pro football. And in a couple of months, when I head to the Bay Area for a Super Bowl, that'll be my 45th. And I'm in my 22nd year as a selector for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So by the numbers are pretty amazing when I think about it. But when I think about it, I say, where did all these years go? How did it go by so fast? But yeah, I've been at it for quite a long time.
Yeah, and you were one of the first guys to actually be on the televised NFL draft. I mean, I saw you back in the day, and you had the dark hair and the big mustache and everything.
Yeah, in 1980, I mean, ESPN went on the air in September of 1979, and they were just looking for anything to put on the air. And so after the first of the year, someone came up with the idea to approach the NFL and say, hey, we'd like to televise the draft. And Pete Rozelle, then the commissioner, said, well, why would you want to do that? Well, they just said, hey, we think it could develop into something. And so I was tapped to be one of the panelists. I was in Bristol. There was another crew in New York. And that was about it on the entire broadcast. There weren't going to all these different places with remotes and all that. It was just a bunch of guys just talking for a while. And bottom line, Richard, is that the reaction, we had no idea what the reaction was going to be, but the reaction was pretty good. And as I've always said, we must have been pretty good at it because they decided to do it for a second year. And obviously, as we know, where it is now on multiple networks and,
Right.
and going on the road to do the draft and getting hundreds of thousands of people. So it's pretty amazing what's happened in these last 46 years.
Yeah, the rest is history, as they say, right? And let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about currently, right, in the current NFL scene, and of course, right here locally with the Arizona Cardinals. We got a couple people in the chat. I want to say hi to Blossom officially and Muffins. Muffins is in the chat room as well. You know, of course, everybody wants to know about Kyler Murray. Kyler officially on the IR. And I got to give you credit, Howard, because you were one of the first ones that talked about the extent of the injury of the foot and the toe when Kyler Murray first, popped up on the injury report.
It's really amazing because when I saw the report yesterday from Adam Schefter that the Cardinals consulted with doctors and have learned that this is like a 4 to 8
You were like, hey, I've been talking about this for months.
I know it's unbelievable, and as if this is the first time they've consulted with doctors. Now, what I think they were probably hoping, a lot of people are saying, well, why wait a month and then put him on injury reserve? Well, I'm sure what they were thinking is that the recovery would be more closer to 4 weeks than later. And once they got to 4 weeks and found that it was still giving him issues, it's not like he couldn't get out there and run around and play, but he couldn't be Kyler Murray because of the foot. And you can even see, if people go back and watch some of the replays in the game against Tennessee after he got injured, you could see him not pushing off on the foot. Right. It was affecting his throws with some accuracy. So yeah, this was not a surprise to me. And now he gets 4 weeks. He can't practice. And as Jonathan Gannon said, he's just got to concentrate on getting healthy. But, who knows? Everybody's wondering, well, what's going to happen next? Well, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, do you think he's done as an Arizona Cardinal, especially when you consider the way Jacoby Brissett is playing? And then, you look at how the offense has improved once Jacoby got in there, throwing from the pocket, getting the ball out on time, using the play-action pass to set up the passing game, using the run game to set up the pass. Well, what do you think? Have we seen the last of Kyler Murray as an Arizona Cardinal?
I think it's certainly possible, and that's going to be the real discussion once the season ends. Because once his 4 weeks are up, I mean, what the heck? I mean, there's what have they played now? They played 8 games, so that'll be 12 games. There's only 5 left, and it doesn't mean he's going to be ready to play right away. But in terms of him not being here, the Cardinals have to figure out a way, contract-wise and salary cap-wise, to get a lot of his money off the books next year to go to another team. That means hoping that he's tradable. And that's the one thing we really don't know the answer to. But you're right. Jacoby Brissett has played well. He's not the future, but he could be your bridge guy and, get someone else young in here. But I will point this out, Richard. And I don't mean to be, and throw fire on Jacoby Brissett's performance. But in the 3 games he's played, there's still been a lot of issues with the offense in the fourth quarter. And I can't have some numbers that'll be on Cards Wire, pretty soon. Here's one amazing one. First half of the 3 games, the Cardinals are 19 for 28 on third down. That's unbelievable. That's close to 70%. However, in the second half, they're 4 for 13 and 0 for 8 in the fourth quarter on third down in the last 3 games. And we've seen in each of those games where in the first 2 against the Packers and the Colts, or the Colts and the Packers, they had a chance to go ahead late in the game. And as good as it had been up till then, they weren't able to. At one game, they got to the 9-yard line and couldn't gain any yards after that. And even in the game, and Jacoby Brissett talked about it after the game, he mentioned it earlier today when he spoke to the media, they had that 4th and 8 play that if they complete that, the game's over. You don't give it back to the Cowboys, and it's over at that point. And Jacoby Brissett, I know he was going forward a little bit and all that. He was, he wasn't in great throwing position, but he threw it at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s feet. And he talked about it. I got to have a better throws than that. And he also talked about having a similar throw against, like in the Packers game. So there's still issues in the fourth quarter for this. It's not like it's been great. It's been great a lot of the time, no doubt. Jacoby Brissett can do things that Kyler Murray can do. He also can't do a lot of the things that Kyler Murray can do. He's been sacked 13 times in the 3 games, and 6 of those sacks happened in the fourth quarter. So there's those issues that no one's talking about much, but I pointed out are still things that have to improve over these next several games with Jacoby Brissett in there at quarterback.
And I'm sure there's a reason why Jacoby Brissett has been, a backup for most of his career, and why Kyler Murray was the starter to begin the season. We got some new people in the chat. We got Bread, we got Muffins, we got Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. We got DZ. DZ says that Kyler's in the injured list with a bruised ego, and they want to keep Jacoby Brissett. I know Jacoby has a 1-year deal, right, $10 million, but when you look at what has happened with other players once Jacoby became the starter, Marvin Harrison, how about his emergence on Monday Night Football? He was ready to take over the game, and especially when they fed him consistently on that first drive.
I have a term, Richard, and I call it collective amnesia. And it seems that everybody gets amnesia about things that happen because it doesn't fit the current narrative. And Marvin Harrison has had an inconsistent year. There's no doubt about it, right? And he had a great first half in the game the other night. Second half, he had 2 targets and 1 reception. The amnesia comes from the Seattle game. Here they're playing the Seahawks this week. That Thursday night game against Seattle, which was a short week after the 49ers, the Cardinals came back in that game. Was Kyler Murray a quarterback in that one? They scored 2 touchdowns late to tie the game. And one of the 2 touchdowns was scored by, guess who? Marvin Harrison, who had a brutal first half in that game. 5 targets, 1 reception. He played really well in the second half and had 5 catches for 58 yards. So it's not as if, people, the comments made about Kyler Murray, I think, obviously there's a portion of the fan base that has never liked him, doesn't think he's very good, and then makes the comments about the ego and all those things, as if he's never played really good football. It's not to say he's perfect. Nobody is. But it seems that people forget some of those good things. And hey, he threw a dime to Zay Jones at the end of the 49ers game that if Zay Jones had caught it, they win that game.
They win that game. Yeah, and you talk about...
And some of the improved offense, I think, is with Will Hernandez back on the offensive line. For that game, he came back and played only 23 snaps with Kyler Murray. And I know it was the Titans, but they scored 3 touchdowns in their first 4 possessions. After he went out, the offense went dead. So it's Jonathan Gannon says it all the time, and I agree with it. It's all a football. It takes all 11. It's not tennis. It's not golf. It's not one guy that can make everything work all the time. And so, that's the issue with Kyler. And so, hey, he's injured. there's a couple seasons there where he tried to play, late in seasons where he did play. In 2021, he came back trying to play on a high ankle sprain. That was probably a mistake. He gets blamed for the collapse at the end of the season, but DeAndre Hopkins was hurt, and he was still playing with the remnants of a high ankle sprain, and he wasn't himself. So that's all I'll say about it. I'm not saying that Brissett shouldn't get his opportunity, but let's not be ready yet to throw the guy a parade.
Yeah, and I guess you're not ready to throw Kyler Murray out on the street either, right? Especially when you consider, he was in the running for the MVP not too long ago, right? I mean, when the Cardinals were off to a great start last year, people were saying, this guy, he had a perfect quarterback rating in one game. So we've seen flashes of Kyler Murray. We've seen what he can do. But also, you've mentioned a lot of his injuries, right? Is that a problem when you have a quarterback that runs the ball a lot? Injuries are going to happen, right? Because the guy's going to get hit more than normal. You saw what happened with Jaden Daniels, a former Arizona State Sun Devil. He's out for the year, and that's a Cliff Kingsbury type of offense where the quarterback has the ball in his hands quite a bit with a lot of run-pass options.
I mean, look at Lamar Jackson, the times he's been hurt. That is the danger. And I think that will make it very interesting that if the Cardinals do investigate trying to move on from him and see if he can be traded, then it's not going to be a lot of teams lining up at his door. It'll be teams that believe that they can do something with him, but the durability is key. I remember when there's all the debate when he signed the new contract and can he do this, can he do that? And I always said, can he stay healthy? There wasn't a season of his first, from 2018, even 2018, his rookie year when he played all the games, he still played with a bad hamstring for a few. Then or was that 2019 when he was a rookie? Yeah. Then 2020, he had an injury to his shoulder, couldn't be himself for the second half of the season. Then, of course, he got injured in the last game of 2021 early in a key game against the Rams and hurt his leg. Then we have the torn ACL. So
they do add up, as you say, they pile up, right? We're going to take a break in a minute, and we're going to talk about the Cardinals getting healthy as a team. If that's going to help them get to the postseason, dare I say, the P word, more on that coming up right after the break.
Played huge roles for them for a long time, and a bunch of several second round picks, third round pick. I think Frank Gore might have been.
Here we go.
In that draft.
All right, and we're back. It's our second segment of Fox 10 Talk Sports. We've got the Howard Balzer with Cards Wire and USAToday.com, our Cardinals insider. I tell you, this guy has forgotten more football than we know. We've got several people in the chat. We got Rob now. He's in the chat. DZ, Muffins, Ethan. They all want to know about the Arizona Cardinals. Howard, we talked about the O-line for the Cardinals getting healthy, right, and how much that has helped Jacoby Brissett, the running game, the passing game. How about the D-line and the first game for the top pick, Walter Nolan, and the impact he had immediately? I mean, he was making plays on that first drive.
I don't think anyone could have expected the impact that he would have
Seriously.
in his first NFL game, especially for as long as he'd been out. I mean, he hasn't been in pads hardly at all. I mean, he didn't have any practice in training camp, missed, several games at the beginning of the season before you return to practice, and you're hardly in pads at all in the regular season. And they go out there with tackles for loss and a sack. And, at the end of the game, he was pretty much past what what the coaches thought his, quote, pitch count was going to be, but they put him back in and he had that huge sack. So this guy looks like the real deal. But how about the young and the old? And Calais Campbell, he has 2 sacks in the final Cowboys drive. But yeah, Nolan, big impact. It helps everyone around him. And Josh Sweat, who hadn't had a sack for 2 games, comes up big. But really,
you mentioned Josh Sweat. I want to give you credit here for people that are watching and on the chat. When Josh Sweat signed with the Arizona Cardinals, you were the one that told me, you were like, yeah, Josh Sweat is good, but the reason he's good is because the Eagles' D-line frees him up to allow him to do what he does. Then he gets here and he's not having the same impact because the D-line's not getting the pressure and in the push up the middle, and all of a sudden Walter Nolan starts to make plays. Josh Sweat looks a lot better. So I was thinking about your comments when that happened, and that's what I think when you get a guy that can get penetration without having to blitz and beat a guy man to man, that really opens up a lot when they start to have to double team a guy like that.
No doubt, no doubt. And we all thought this draft class could be pretty good. And look at that game Monday night. I mean, Will Johnson has some big plays. Cody Simon comes in for Mack Wilson Sr. when he gets injured, and he has the green dot in his helmet, so he's relaying the defensive calls and has that huge strip of Javonte Williams at the end of the game after Will Johnson made a great tackle on Williams on a 3rd and 12 little swing pass. Simon comes up big. Even Denzel Burke, who was picked, I think, a round after Cody Simon, their college teammates at Ohio State. He's played at different times this year because of the injuries to Melton, the injury to Will Johnson. Max Melton goes out in that game with a concussion. Burke played a lot of snaps and had that big pass breakup on C.D. Lamb on a 4th down that the Cowboys went for. Of course, the interception at the end of the game was, he was just, Dak Prescott was just throwing it up in desperation on 4th and 28 or whatever it was. But Burke played pretty well when he was in there too. So they're getting some play out of this rookie class. And that's been the key to this team. I mean, I heard some people saying, oh my, this rebuilding thing hasn't worked.
Yeah, Imani was getting beat up for a while there too.
But they're losing close games. And this was a pretty close game too. Heck, if the Cowboys had gone for a field goal in that one time when they went for it on 4th down, it would have been a 1-score game at 7 instead of 10. But this team, I still believe this team has the ingredients to be a pretty good football team. We'll see though if they can stack some wins and try to edge back at least to that 500 mark, and then at least be in the conversation coming down the home stretch of the season with a chance. I think it's a long shot, but you just never know in this league. We've seen turnarounds before. Never say never. People give up way too often. I sometimes think, Richard, that people have lived on another planet and never seen teams come back from deficits in games or come back from tough records and turn a season around. Heck, we saw it with the Diamondbacks a few seasons ago when they were nowhere in late summer, came back, they got in the playoffs and got to the World Series. So this stuff happens, I'm not going to say frequently, but it does happen. And it shows that no one should, I'm not saying predict things, but I'm also saying you should never give up because anything is possible. And that's what they're hoping for in the stretch of games now with the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Jaguars, and then the Bucks. Those 3 teams there have 6 victories, and the Jaguars are over 500. So this will be a very, very illuminating 4-game stretch.
Yeah, we got a little P now in the chat. You talked about, Monty Ford. First people didn't like his picks. Now they like the picks because the rookies are coming through. Your thoughts on Monty not really making a move as the deadline comes and goes? Every team in the division seemed to make a move. I know the 49ers, they get a cornerback, or defensive lineman rather. They got it way before the trade deadline, but it still counts because they kind of beat the deadline. And then, you got a wide receiver for Seattle. And then you got a cornerback for the Rams, but the Cardinals seem to stay put. Are you okay with that?
I think I'm sure they were talking to a lot of teams, and they just felt that the right deal wasn't there to be made. And yes, they've made trades, the last couple seasons. One of them when they traded Josh Dobbs. Last year they got Baron Browning, who's a pretty solid player for them. But you always like to see some moves, but there was a lot of action, a little more than usually is, especially the huge deal from Sauce Gardner being traded by the Jets to the Colts. But I'm sure they figured that, hey, we're building something here. Maybe you don't want to give up picks to get somebody. They didn't want to give up players who they still felt, they're not giving up on the season, even though some fans did. And so, not everybody, there's a lot of trades, but not every team makes one. And I'm okay for it. You just have to say they didn't see anything that they felt would help make the team better.
Ethan says, go Cardinals, beat the Seahawks. We got now Johnny in the chat. He says the Cardinals are playing like a team, not individuals anymore. Yeah, they really seem to come together on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys. Is that a win that can kind of catapult this team into a string of victories? Because when you look at it, not one game so far this season has been by less than 10 points, other than the game on Monday night. But before this Monday night game, every game was within 7 points, and the losses were by 1 point, 4 points, last second field goals. They were in every single game.
Exactly. And I think that, I don't know if there's such a thing as momentum. Certainly, I think it does get a monkey off the back when you've lost 5 in a row. And on national TV on Monday Night Football, you go out there and win a game. And even though I mentioned that the offense didn't finish as well as you would have liked, the defense did and got some takeaways. I mean, they had 3, even if you don't really include the last interception, they had 2 takeaways in the game. And I think they'd only had 7 takeaways in 7 games coming in. So those are the things that you have to do to be a winning team and find a way to win those close games. So I think that the Seahawks are a very good team. They're playing really well.
Sam Darnold's been on fire.
Oh my goodness! I mean, heck, in the first half against the Commanders, he was 16 for 16 for 282 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half. So that defense is going to have an answer to it. But that defense overall has played pretty well. The fourth quarter has been an issue. But this last game, they made the plays in the fourth quarter that kept the Cowboys from coming all the way back.
You mentioned, what a difference a couple weeks can make, right? Especially for the Arizona Cardinals as a team. But how about for Amari DiMercato? I mean, he was the guy that, had egg on his face. He was the guy that dropped the ball right, and that loss was the gut punch that the Cardinals were not expecting, right? They seemed to kind of, spiral and spin out of control after that. But then you see him have a great game, right? Really good game against the Cowboys, and then make the smart move at the end and stay in bounds and slide to keep the clock running. How cool is that to see? And then to see Jonathan Gannon be one of the first guys to come up and congratulate him on a good game.
Yeah, and he was screaming on the sideline. The camera caught him yelling, I think, a little expletive there, like, yeah. It was good to see. And, again, I think the team still rebounded pretty well from the Tennessee game because they led 2 of the better teams in the NFL in the fourth quarter, in the game against the Packers. But, there were people saying, man, that was just such a bad thing he did. They should just cut him. Well, Amari DiMercato has a big role on this team, and he's excellent on third down, especially in pass blocking. We saw some of the issues when he didn't play in the previous game because of an ankle injury, but that play was smart, and it doesn't wash out what happened in Tennessee, but it shows the guy's got a head on his shoulder and is a smart player. And he ran for 79 yards in that game. He was a big part of that running attack. And Michael Carter, who it was everybody's favorite, he was active, elevated from the practice squad. He didn't even play at all, special teams or on offense. But it was good to see for DiMercato because no one lost faith in him. The coaches didn't, the players didn't, because they know what type of guy he is. And it was good to see him have a good game like that and make that. As it turned out, the clock didn't run because the Cowboys called a timeout, but
Right, but it forced him to call the timeout, and it was still the smart play, right? Yeah, and you talk about the players didn't give up on Amari, the team didn't give up on Amari. How about Coach Gannon? We got a couple minutes left here, about a minute and a half. What are your thoughts on you talked about even after that Tennessee game? A lot of teams would have quit. A lot of teams would have started pointing fingers, but they kept playing hard. They took it to the Colts. They took it to the Packers, and they didn't give up on Coach Gannon. That's got to say a lot about the culture in that locker room and what they think about their head coach.
And Calais Campbell has said it on a couple of occasions, I think, Richard. Jonathan Gannon is one of the best head coaches I've ever played for, and guys speak highly of him. That's why in that NFLPA report card that they do each year, he gets high grade because of the way he treats his players. And so he does. We don't know what happens behind closed doors, but I think he obviously has the respect of this team, and so that's a positive. And for people saying, "Oh my God, it's time to blow it up," right? You're going to blow it up again? I mean, is that what you want to keep doing every 3 years? Then you'll never be successful. So yeah, I think that he has a handle on this team. He knows how to treat them. He treats his coaches well, and he trusts in his assistant coaches. A lot of people on the outside don't, but he trusts in them. And it shows, though, when you're executing and players make plays, all of a sudden nobody's complaining about the play calling on offense. So I think that's key. The other crazy thing, Richard, quickly, I know Tennessee.
Yeah.
Who knows where we would be? That was the game that Kyler Murray got hurt
Right.
on the play where the early snap hit him in the face, and he stepped funny after that. And he might have aggravated something that had already happened, but that was the irony of that one, because that was after that game was the last we've seen him so far this season. And like I said, who knows when we'll see him again.
Yeah, and who knows what Jacoby Brissett can do, at Seattle. That's going to be a tough game, as you mentioned, the defense, but still, it could be a string of victories here. We got a lot of people in the chat, they're saying boo Seattle. Howard, I appreciate your time. I appreciate all your insight. Let's get you on again, and let's revisit this to see if some of the stuff that we've talked about comes to fruition, right? Because this could be one of those wins on Monday night that springboards this team to future wins. So we're going to keep talking. We hope you guys keep listening, and thanks to everyone in the chat, and of course, thanks to you, Howard Balzer. Everybody, have a good night.